What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. True Evil here, and today I want to cover everything you need to know about Blue Protocol Star Resonance since it's launching tomorrow. And as starting a new MMORPG, the things that I think are most important to note is how do I have the highest ability score possible. And this is really important because when you're looking for groups to do dungeons and they're looking for someone who has like an 1800 ability score and you're sitting at like 1650 and you're like, I thought I did everything possible. Why are people that much higher than me? Well, we're going to cover everything you need to know on how to have the best ability score possible every day. Then another thing I think is super important is alts. Do I need to make different characters for resources? How is everything going to function on that? So I think that's a really important thing. We're going to talk about alts, and we're going to talk about just the dailies and weeklies, as well as just general overview of how the server launch is going to be, because it's a little bit different than a lot of other MMOs, in my opinion. So without further ado, let's get in on it. So before we talk about specifics on the game, let's just talk about some general overview of things you need to know for day one of the server's launch. And before we even talk about the game, one thing I want to note is that the pre-download for the client is up. So if you want to be ready right when servers launch, be sure to download it now. I'm going to have a link in the description for you to download the game, and I'm going to be personally choosing the Steam client. Really excited they have a day one Steam client. Now let's talk about the game. So the most important thing you need to know about the launch of the game is that the server is going to be unlocking content through a 19-day time gate. And what this means is that on like the first day, you can only do a certain point of the main story quest, only certain dungeons are unlocked, and they will unlock more and more as time goes on. So one day Goblin's Nest is out, next day Tina's Mind Realm is out, next day Towering Ruin is out, etc., etc., and it's just going to keep unlocking the dungeons and content. And the most important thing to note about that is that basically all the levels are tied to questing. You can get XP from beating mobs, but it's very negligible compared to questing XP. It's like 400k for a side quest versus like 1 to 5 XP off a mob. So pretty much leveling and progression is time gated as well. And what this is really going to help out for is if you are, say, like a little bit low on your ability score, say you're at like a 1650, and you notice everyone is saying that they want a minimum of 1800 to join a party. Well, it gives you that time to really focus and optimize on your character. So that's a really nice thing about this drip content. Now, the last thing I want to note before we start talking about how to get the best ability score possible every day is going to be how the life skills are time gated, which this is going to be time gated through a stamina system. Basically, you get a daily allotment. You don't have to do it every day. There is a cap and it stacks up to 2,000, I believe. And what is going to happen is basically every time you mine for a ruby, craft a gem to sock it into your gear, it's going to take a little bit of that stamina. After a certain amount of stamina usage, you're going to get a little mastery token, which you can do to unlock abilities in those skills. And that's just an important thing to note, is that the stamina system is a time gateway for the life skills, and you can buy refill potions so you can do more life skills every day, but that's going to be a personal preference. I'm not necessarily going to do that besides the refill potions that you get from the battle pass. So just wanted a daily note on that. So let's go to ability score now, because this is going to be probably the most important thing to know on what to work on for those first couple days. Now, the most important thing we're going to talk about in this video is how to optimize your ability score. There's three main things to know outside of leveling, which is going to be the gear itself and how to upgrade that, your skills, and battle imagines, which are summons that also give passive stats. And this is going to really tie into a lot of other mechanics such as life skills and just how everything is going to work. So let's just break this down, and what we're going to talk about first is gear. Let's talk about gear first itself. You get gear off using boss keys, farming dungeons, and you can also create them with the life skills. And how to improve that to get the best gear score possible is going to be three ways: reforging, refining, and embedding. We're going to talk about refining first because this is a permanent way to improve your gear. So, really nice thing to do early on. And basically, refining, there is a success chance it's going to stay at 100% for the first week basically, and then once you get to about like level 11, level 12, you're going to notice that the success rate is going to go down in terms of improving this, and every time you fail this, the next chance is going to have a higher success rate, but there's also items you can use to improve the success rate. I recommend to hold off on those items until it starts dipping pretty low. Once you get to like 75% success chance, 45% success chance, then you can start using those items. Hold off on them. Don't waste them. You can accidentally use them at like 100% success rate. Don't do that. Wait until it gets to a low number. And this is just something you'll be doing one time and you don't have to worry about it. Now let's talk about the ones that are going to be done over and over again, which is first we're going to talk about embedding. Embedding is really important because this is going to be something that I recommend prioritizing your life skills on, which is going to be through gem crafting. You're going to mine gems off the overworld, and then you're going to craft gems. There's two things you need to know about them. Rubies give a different thing than emeralds, etc. So when you're using those mastery coins to unlock different ways to craft them, look into your character that you're deciding to build and figure out what they want. For example, if you're a shield knight, you want crit chance, so you're going to be making rubies, and then on the stat that you want after that, you unlock that through shapes. So that's definitely going to be something to really prioritize because you don't get the gem back. You can't unsocket the gem, but you can put a different gem in. Say you used an emerald and you want a sapphire instead, you can resocket, but you can't reuse these gems. And because of that, I think it's better to just level this up with the life skills than go to the auction house and buying a bazillion of these, because in the first 19 days you're going to be embedding a lot. So definitely recommend doing it that way and having your life skills prioritized on that besides other things. So definitely prioritize this because it's a really easy way to miss out on ability score, in my opinion. I saw a lot of people in the beta test not do this. So definitely going to be a priority, especially because you have to level up your life skills to get the higher end gems, and you don't want to be at end game and you can't craft those gems because they're going to be expensive in the auction house. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about in terms of gear is reforging, which basically is you can use reforged stones to raise the perfection level of your gear, which is just going to make every overall stat increased. And there is a re-rollable stat that you can use reforged stones to re-roll to find the stat for you. There's two things I'm going to note about that, which I'm not going to tell you how to use your reforged stones, but just note that when you dismantle that gear, you do get reforged stones back. So I highly recommend to do this because you don't want to sell your gear back and miss out on reforged stones because, well, they're sort of limited and you don't want to use like rose orbs to get reforged stones, in my opinion. So definitely point that out as well, as not every gear can roll for certain stats. So I recommend going on somewhere like Max Roll and finding a table that says which stat the gear can't roll to, because it's going to feel really dumb if you're rolling for like mastery and the gear can't roll for mastery. So make sure you know that your gear can roll for the stat that you want, and also just remember to dismantle gear, because I forgot that in the CBT and I felt really, really salty about that in the beta. So definitely recommend to always dismantle your gear that you're not using anymore, as well as those other tips. So let's move on now and talk about skills. In terms of skills for ability score, there are two ways to improve your skills. One is improving the skill level through Luno, and the other one is advancing it using advancement books. And the first thing we're going to talk about is Luno, because you're going to get a lot more Luno than advancement books. But even though you get a lot more Luno, what I'm going to recommend is sort of figure out which skills you're going to want for in-game and only level specific skills, because the higher levels that you get to are going to need a significant amount of Luno. So if you try to level up, say like I only want to play marksman, and you level every skill with the marksman, well, you're going to run out of Luno, and it's going to feel really mid when you can't level up that bread and butter skill because you leveled up some skill that you're never even going to put on your skill bar. So definitely recommend to sort of figure that out, as well as the skill advancement books are going to be the biggest thing. If you're going to use rose orbs for upgrades, I highly recommend doing that for the advancement books, because they are the hardest things from my experience in the CBT to get. And on these, they are pretty hard to get, so only do them on the essential skills, those bread and butter skills. Don't just use your advancement skills willy-nilly. I think that's going to be really, really important. So really plan out those advancement skill books, because if you want to try to, like, say, get some from the auction house, they cost an arm and a leg. So definitely recommend prioritizing those on only certain skills and making sure on the weekly shops that you unlock those, because they are going to be the best way to improve your character, and they are the hardest resource to get. So definitely use resource orbs for this. And that's really all we need to talk about, but really focus on the skill advancement books in terms of, like, if you're alting, I'm going to recommend right now that it's like, if you're going to be doing an alt, you will become a master of none if you spread those books out. So really focus on specific skills, because if it's just like, it's going to be really tough to say, like, if you decide to like make 5 classes on a character and you're using advancement books on all 5, yeah, you're gonna have a bad time going into like the later weeks of the game. So definitely know that this resource is probably the most precious in the game. The last thing we're going to talk about in terms of ability score is going to be the Battle Imagines. Now, Battle Imagines has a gotcha system tied to them. You don't have to do them. You can farm them in the overworld with boss keys. And even if you do pull things on the gotcha, you still need materials that you get from doing dungeons and other things to really unlock them. But this is definitely something that feels really reminiscent of gacha games, because there is a dupe system tied to them, and the stats that you can get on some of these later summons is pretty substantial. But basically, you can put 2 on a character, and I highly recommend sort of like looking at the class you want to play and really prioritizing only a couple of different ones and just going from there. This is definitely going to be the most sort of like pay to win aspect in terms of ability score, but just note that you do not need to do the gacha for the Battle Imagines to really like be able to clear all the content in the game. It's just, well, you can really get a super high score from doing this, but I really recommend not to. But, you know, if you want to, go ahead. Now let's talk about alts, because alts are a big thing in MMOs, and what we're going to talk about is the 2 different ways to alt and whether or not I recommend doing so. And the 2 different ways of alting in this game is going to be having one character with different classes on it. Say you unlock Marksman Shield Knight on a character, and the other way is through having different characters on the account. You can have 3 characters on an account. So let's just talk about the different ways, and then at the end I'm going to give my verdict if I recommend them. The first type of alts we're going to talk about is just having different classes on the same character. You get an item called a Hero's Radiance for free doing quests, which unlocks one different class than the class that you pick at the beginning, and then each class that you unlock after that is through purchasing that Hero's Radiance through Rose Orbs. Now, in terms of doing this, it's really nice to do this because you need a DPS class to clear that side of Trial Pass, you need a support to clear that part of Trial Pass, etc. And sometimes in terms of like doing dungeons, you know, DPS sometimes it takes a while, and if you have a support class you get that instant. So it's nice to have that, but in terms of like the resources you get in the game, if you try to build like 3 classes at all at once, you're going to run out of advanced books, you're going to run out of Luno, and it's going to feel really mid, and you're going to be a master of none instead of just having one strong character. So in terms of that, what I recommend to do is that you have that one main class on your character, you have another class, but you're not really like loading up on it, say like a shield knight, and you don't use like advanced books except on like that one skill you need to be able to tank a dungeon, and then have like that third class that you unlock just to clear all 3 different parts of the trial path. That's what I recommend to do if you're going to be doing some alt classes on a character. And now let's talk about the other way, which is what most people think about when you do MMOs, which is going to be creating a different character on its own. And the reason you would do this is to like get materials. Like with life skills, there is that stamina system, and this is a way to get, say, like that stamina off the side character to make potions and cook things for your other characters, so you can focus on like gem crafting on one, and then like alchemy, botany, and stuff like that on the other one. And I actually do not recommend to do this in this game, because there is like, it takes a lot of time and effort, and they really make it so there's like a limit of how many resources you can share through like the warehouse system. So because of this, I highly recommend not doing this, and it'll save you a lot of time to just, well, use refill potions if you want to do that. So definitely recommend not making an alt. So it's okay to like make different classes on that character. I think that would probably be the best way, because at the beginning of the game, it's just like you're not going to be able to build every class on a character. So my recommendation on alts is not to do it in terms of like making one alt make the cooking for your main character, one character makes the potions for the character, but do it in terms of like, I want one character to play like heavy armor stuff, I want character for light armor stuff, I want one character for medium armor stuff, sort of like that. That's how I would do alts in this game. Don't go in expecting it to be like Lost Arks. And I kind of like that. I like the casual approach to alts, and that's just what you need to know. The last thing we're going to talk about in this video is sort of how the dailies and the weeklies are going to look. And the most important thing to note about the dailies is that not all dailies you need to do every day, which is super nice in my opinion. And what I mean by that is like with the life skills, they have that stamina system. So if you don't want to do life skills for a couple of days, you can just let that stamina go up, and then you can have like one day where you decide, I'm going to do like 3 days worth of life skills, right? So that's really nice. As the same thing works with how the elite mob drops go in the overworld. You get a certain amount of keys every day, so like maybe you go like 2 days without opening a chest off of an elite mob, and you decide today I'm going to farm this certain one. Definitely can do that. It's really nice to do. I really like it when I don't feel pressure to do everything every day. There are some things that reset every day, but you know, it is what it is on that front. The battle pass for this game is pretty reminiscent of like a gacha game, and then there's that merit you can do every day to improve the battle pass. You can get an ultimate version of that battle pass, which makes it so like you can earn merit quicker, so you can get those dailies out of the way faster. And then there's weekly things. The most important thing in my opinion to make sure you do is that weekly raid, and every other week the vaults are going to reset. Make sure you prioritize the vaults. So those are the main things I recommend to focus on in dailies and weeklies, as well as your guild hunt. Guild hunt, there's like this thing where you have to like go to a guild dance, and if you do it for like, I think it's like 2 minutes or something, where you just dance, You get a power up for the guild hunt, which is a boss rush that you can do with, I believe, up to 5 people in your guild. Super fun activity. Everything is just like pretty fun and chill. Definitely really looking forward to launch tomorrow. So yeah, that's pretty much everything you need to know before the game comes out tomorrow. Let me know if this video helped you at all, and be sure to slam that like button. See you guys tomorrow, and I'm going to be posting a lot of Blue Protocol content, so be sure to subscribe. See you tomorrow.